Ever feel like you're doing this teaching thing alone? You don't have to be. Shared teaching is all about sharing the workload through the power of collaboration and teamwork. Together, we'll walk through all the difficult parts of teaching and learn how to streamline our processes, fine-tune our time management, and develop a more manageable workload. If that sounds like a dream come true to you, then welcome to the Shared Teaching Podcast. Let's share in the teaching to make those dreams a reality. Now here's today's Shared Teaching. Welcome back to the Shared Teaching Podcast. This is your host and creator of Shared Teaching, Susan. Today, we are doing episode 10. I'm very excited. I am giving you a parent perspective on what it's like to have a distance learning elementary age student. So that's a lot of fun. So stay tuned with me. That's coming up in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to let everyone know, thank you so much for listening. I have gotten over 500 downloads of my podcast episodes. So I'm very excited and I'm very thrilled that you have been listening to my episodes, even though there aren't very many of them yet. I hope to bring more and more frequently very soon. Okay, so let's get right to it. Episode 10. It's all about being a parent that has a student who is home with distance education, just 100% online learning during this crazy school year. So my daughter, those of you who haven't listened before, she is actually a first grader. She's 6 years old and in first grade. And I would consider her fairly independent. It is just her and myself in our small family. So I do not have another adult to rely on for help, which can definitely be a downside at some times, but very positive in others because it means I have total control, which I like. I don't like to not have control. She does pretty well, although this has been super challenging. It's been almost a year. I believe right around March 15th will mark the 1 year stay at home, which is just crazy. But my school district just recently decided that we are going back to hybrid. Not so thrilled about that. And so that is starting up March 1st, but teachers are actually due back February 22nd. So I have less than 2 weeks to wrap my head around the fact that I will be back in a school setting. I don't even know why we're bothering, but the decisions are not mine. I just have to kind of go with the flow and come to terms with it is what it is. As much as I've loved staying at home, teaching from home, having a little extra downtime than I usually don't get, just because being from home has allowed me to do things like throw in a load in the washing machine or run the dishwasher while I'm teaching. And then by the end of my teaching day, voila, clean things. So that part's been really nice. I've also been sick. So the opportunity to, as soon as my teaching day is done, that I can take a quick nap. Whereas before I might stay at school until 4:30 or 5 o'clock at night and then come home and then it's dinner and bedtime. And so there is no time for a nap. That's been really nice. So I'm not looking forward to my schedule changing in those regards. I just feel like I have more energy. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is that children this age, in my opinion, they're not ready for total independence, and we're treating them like they are. And it's not our fault. I think it's the model of how distance education is thought of by our districts and our principals, what's kind of trickled down to us as teachers. What we're doing is by no means best practice for them. I mean, sitting in front of a computer for 7 hours a day is challenging for anybody, let alone, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. It's incredibly hard. And to be very socially distanced from their peers, where this is the age that they're really kind of figuring out what it means to make friends and get along with other people and all those great social, emotional things that they're just not getting right now. When I watch my daughter, so here's how my day looks. Let's just rewind a little bit. While I'm teaching live, at the exact same time I'm teaching live, she is logged in, usually within the same room, because I tried to move her into her bedroom. I put the computer desk in there. I'm like, you be in here, I'll close the door so I can be out here and teach. That lasted for a hot minute. So I am usually in the living room. Sometimes she's right in the living room with me. Sometimes she's in the dining room, and it's open floor plan, so it's pretty much the same room. I'm live teaching. She logs on to listen to her teacher live teach the lessons. And then I'm very, very thankful that my school has the same exact schedule. So when it's my lunchtime, it's her lunchtime. So that makes things very easy. When she has specials, it's actually my prep time. So while she's still watching her specials live with her specials teacher, usually I'm trying to get a lot of prep work done, like pre-recording some of my grammar and phonics content, because that my asynchronous time requires pre-recorded lessons, and that's the only time I have to get them done. In the afternoon, we have asynchronous time. So I'm logged in to help students for an hour, and during that time, she's working on her assignments, and I'm checking in with my students. I'm grading things. I'm trying to prepare lessons for the following week. It seems like there's never enough time to prepare. So that's kind of how our day looks like. We're both plugged in live at the exact same time. The only difference is I'm teaching and recording, and she's sitting and listening. As far as her being independent, she's very good at getting out the computer, logging in by herself, sitting down with the lessons. But then, she's a kid and she's home and she gets very distracted, and, she wants to play with her toys, or she turns the computer away from her and she's trying to, get on her Kindle and watch a TV show or something. And I'm live teaching and recording simultaneously, right? So it's very hard for me to stop what I'm doing and try to get her refocused or, take things away from her. So that's been a crazy challenge that I'm sure a lot of other parents don't have, that because they're not teachers at the same time. So that's kind of unique, I think, to our family and my position with my job. But other parents, if they're home with their child and they're working, that kind of gives you the perspective of, well, if they're working, like their attention is really hard to get pulled. If they're needed concentrating on a job, and that's their source of income, then they need to concentrate on their job. I've told my daughter that time and time again, like, I can't help you right now. You need to wait until I am done with my day, and then I'm available to help you. Or you can ask your teacher when it's time to ask your teacher, and she can help you out. So that is the piece that's been really hard. And so I think we kind of have to keep that in mind. Parents are juggling a lot. And I know I'm not trying to excuse parents or students for not doing work. I know across the board, and I have a lot in my class, believe me. I am not some rare unicorn exception here. I have a majority of my class that does not complete assignments, or they show up for the live lessons and I can see them during my live lessons where it's like, so-and-so left the meeting, so-and-so left the meeting, and I can see them just dropping out during my lessons. So they pop in to get that attendance, and then they're like, peace out, and they don't stay for the whole day. And I can tell by their answers to a lot of the assignments, they did not watch the content. They have no clue what's going on. Anyway, the main thing is that I think at this age, they are not ready for independence unless a parent is sitting with them. It's very hard to keep a young primary, elementary school age child focused and on task, they really need an adult there to make sure they're getting it done. This is true for my daughter. This is true for most of the students in my class. I have one very rare exception in my class that is one of those students that you love every time you have in your teaching career because they eat up all your words and they're just dying to do work and they're so excited about school and they love learning and they can stay focused and they get their work done and usually it's very well done and they're very high in their grades. So I have one of those in my class, but my daughter is not one of those people. She's kind of in the middle, so she does really well, and I think that served her well so far. She's a very high reader, and she's okay with writing. She's still kind of at that stage where she can sound out words and write words, and you can read what she writes, but she thinks it's really fun to put a period in between every word. So it's so difficult right now trying to get things like writing and grammar understood by children that are learning through a computer. And honestly, I'm not doing my best as a parent that's also an educator because I am just so unbelievably exhausted by the end of every day. I can't imagine what it's going to be like in a couple weeks when I'm doing 3 cohorts simultaneously, hybrid and distance. I've heard it's a nightmare, and if you have any tips on it, please let me know. Drop some comments on either this podcast episode or send me an email, susan@sharedteaching.com. Leave me a message in Instagram, same handle @sharedteaching. I would love to know, how are you figuring out hybrid? Because that's my next steps. Okay, so apart from them not being ready for that independence, they need an adult there, and a lot of times they don't have that supervision. That's kind of where everything is collapsing at the moment, is parents really have to be stepping up, myself included, to make sure the work is completed, to make sure they're understanding directions. Which leads me into my next step, is that the directions for independent assignments are often not kid-friendly. Okay, I am fortunate that I can see what my daughter is being given by her teacher, and I can also, see what obviously I give to my own second grade class. And I try very hard, if it's an assignment that I give my own personal class, that I have made sure that it's gone over during my live lesson time. So when it's my teaching time, at the very end, I said, this is your assignment today. And I pull it up. Here's what it looks like. Here's what you have to do to complete it. And I always end with any questions. I really want to make sure that they're understanding when it's their time to take over in the afternoon, they know what they're going to do. Now, my daughter's teacher, on the other hand, she's a good teacher, but she is not explaining to kids their assignments. She doesn't pull them up. She doesn't show them what they look like. She just assigns them, and the reading ones, they change depending on what she finds on TPT to buy, or I don't know if they're free items, but they're not always consistent in nature. So one week it might be like a little play a PowerPoint game, and as you go through the PowerPoint, you can choose yes and no, and it tells you if you're right or wrong. Those are good because they're very easy for kids to understand. But then she might get some drag and drop things, and those are just crazy. So yesterday I had to sit with her, and I think she had 12 slides of phonics practice, and every slide was different. And it didn't tell you what the words were you were trying to spell and find. Some of them I had to stare at a long time and try to figure out what are they asking? What does she need to do? There really was no direction on the slide, just the pictures and the pieces. And anyway, so if you are doing virtual learning or even hybrid, my suggestion is to think of the students and make sure that you're explaining the activity. Even if your lesson was separate from the activity, still think about spending just 1 or 2 minutes to pull it up and saying, this is what it will look like, You can find it wherever, if it's Google Classroom that you're using or Canvas or Seesaw. Just share your screen and walk it through them with them and put the directions, or make sure you're recording directions. My daughter, luckily, is a reader, but at the beginning of the year, her teacher was not explaining what to do. I mean, even as far as putting up a morning meeting little quick write, she wouldn't tell them what the screen said. And sometimes my daughter would have to ask me because they were words she didn't know yet. And so she doesn't even know what she's supposed to be doing with her morning meeting activity because there has been no instruction and the teacher didn't go back over what the slide said. So something as simple as that, making sure that you're reading the slides, that things are very clear with the kids, goes a long way, because remember, parents aren't always available to help. Luckily, I've been there with my child that I can kind of once in a while mute myself in between lessons and I can, quickly tell her what she's supposed to be doing. But think of the parents that aren't available. So how are those kids coping at home when they don't have a readily available or attentive adult that can help them? Okay, it's not their fault. So how can we build in those support systems for students that are like that? Okay, the third point I had is that some of those activities take a long time to complete. So when I'm thinking of lessons for my own class, I think of what's going to benefit the most. Is it just going to be a bunch of busy work because I want them on the computer completing it, or is it going to be something that really helps benefit their learning? And so I also think of the quantity. Okay? Just because a TPT seller puts like 30 slides in their product doesn't mean that you should publish all 30 slides for the students to use. Again, I keep picking on my daughter's teacher, but that's because that's what I'm seeing, right? It's from a parent perspective, so I'm seeing what's happening in my daughter's classroom. Not to say that all teachers are doing this. I do know that all these teachers on her grade level are doing the same exact thing because they're all sharing in the workload and in the content and materials that they're publishing. So when you're going to give a student like 16 phonics slides, and every phonics slide is typing, 5 or 6 words, or manipulating these tiny little movable pieces to like build out those words, and it's more than one word on a slide. Think about how long that takes on a computer. As an adult, we're much more proficient and we're very fast, but most kids are not knowing how to 10-key type. That's the phrase, isn't it? It's been so long since I've done typing. I'm like, I properly use all my fingers when I type, so I know it's not like 2-finger touch. Okay, so most kids are like a one finger pecker, right? Like they're hunting and pecking for like one key at a time, including my daughter. So it takes them a long time before they get to be really good at typing. So while we might finish things very quickly, a lot of the kids are lacking some of the motor control, especially if their parents haven't bought them a mouse, to manipulate a lot of those pieces around. It's those little mini pieces. My daughter had one assignment that was math, and it was cute, but it was word problems, and it was so many slides of word problems. I can't even remember now. It was like 15 or 20 word problems for a first grader. If we wouldn't give 15 or 20 word problems on a piece of paper that we would pass out to them, should that be what we're assigning if it's digital? But anyway, so just on one slide of that assignment, it was a Google Slides assignment, she had to read the word problem. Again, early first grade. She can read okay, but she still struggled with some of the words. And because they're word problems, trying to find the key words to figure out what kind of problem she was doing. Was she adding? Was she subtracting? That was difficult too. And then she had to move the pieces. So if it was talking about, someone in their butterflies, she was given a bunch of butterflies. And so she had to act out the problem with these itty bitty butterflies. And remind you, the students are on these tiny little, 11-inch, no, not even, 7.5-inch Chromebook screens. I bought her a bigger computer just because, a year of this craziness, she needed a bigger monitor. So, but most kids aren't fortunate to do that. They're using what the school gave them. So an iPad or a tiny little Chromebook, regular Chromebook screen, it's very, very small. I don't know about you, but I can't use my teacher Chromebook. It's crazy. It's the same exact one as the kids. And trying to get the mouse to cooperate is really hard. It's worse than a regular computer. So moving these itty bitty little butterflies around, in different colors to match the two numbers in the word problem, and then to take away or add them, and then you had to type in the word problem answer. It was a lot. For one page, it was a lot. And for as many as there was, I think we got not even halfway through, and I turned it in to the teacher, and I left her a message, and I just said, this is nuts. I said, I'm sorry, but my daughter will not be completing this. And I'm usually not like that. I'm usually trying to honor, the teacher because I'm a teacher myself. But she needed to understand just how much time kids were spending on this one math assignment for one day, because the next day there was a totally different kind of math assignment. So anyway, keeping in mind that when kids are completing activities digitally, it takes them a lot longer than if you just handed them a piece of paper. So that was my main point about that story. And then the last thing I wrote down is that teaching in this manner is making it very hard for students to get to know one another and their classmates. And at the beginning of the year, I think we kind of were like, I hope most of the teachers were like, introduce yourself, get to know one another. I played quite a few get to know you games. And when a new student comes into my room, I, try to make a big deal about them as well. And I have them complete the same activities so that we can play like a get to know you activity with like the, two truths and a lie game. And then I also have them just fill out like a little paper that talks about who's in their family, what's their favorite thing to eat, just something very simple that I can share on the screen, and we can talk about the people in our classroom. So, which is good. I mean, it helps build classroom community. My daughter did not get that opportunity. And she probably couldn't tell you the name of most of her classmates if she couldn't read their names on the screen when she's in the meetings. And then our school, and I know we're probably one of the exceptions, not the rule, but my school does back-to-back live teaching. So we have a reading lesson that's only 30 minutes. Then we have a math lesson. Then we have a writing lesson. And they're boom, boom, boom. They are back-to-back. They're very quick, one right after another. And 30 minutes to teach a math or a reading lesson is crazy because you have to build in, your everything, your gradual release model, because that's what the district's looking for. So it gets to be really crazy. So you're powering through that lesson, and where do you have the engagement and the activity and the discussion with one another? So that's lacking in our days. So just keeping that in mind, these kids, now that it's getting to be more than halfway through this school year, if you're in America. If you're not, I think you're just starting out the school year if you're in maybe Australia. So the students don't really know each other, even at this point in the year, and maybe trying to find some small ways that they can talk and engage with each other would go a long way to helping. I know a lot of the students are feeling depressed and they're done with school and they're tired, and I hear that from my own daughter as well, and it's very heartbreaking because she used to love going to school and seeing her friends and playing on the playground, and now even when we go back, it's going to be completely different because those are not options anymore. Keep that in mind. Do you offer opportunities for the kids to talk to one another, even if it's an academic way? I do almost every single reading lesson in my week, except for usually Mondays because I'm introducing the new topic, and Fridays because we're doing a quiz. But the rest of the day of the week, I am doing breakout rooms, and so I do my lesson. I go through that pretty quickly. I talk about the vocabulary, I talk about the concept for the day. Then I introduce their workbook page, and they'll have a workbook at home with a hard copy workbook. And when they go in their breakout rooms, that's what they're completing together. So I found that is helping. They are getting to know each other, and then I mix up the groups every few weeks so that they are seeing other people in their class and getting to know each other in a little bit. I would like to start offering that in more subject areas, but unfortunately, with the time constraint, 30 minutes is just really hard to do a full math lesson and a breakout room. I don't know. I feel like I need the full 30 minutes, and I'm usually always running a few minutes late because I'm like, let me just finish this last little problem on this page, and then we'll move on. But so from a parent perspective with distance education, just to recap, we talked about the first thing is that students that are very young, early primary, or even up to upper elementary, they're just not quite ready for the level of independence that we're asking them to demonstrate. So keeping that in mind with how you build your asynchronous times and also your lessons, and providing that scaffolding and that support, because maybe they don't have that parent support at home. Number 2, we talked about the directions for assignments that are meant to be independent are not often very kid-friendly, or they're lacking in directions, and the students are not sure what to do, and things are not very clear. The third thing is that digital activities take so much longer than it takes a paper activity to be completed, even if it seems to be a very easy plug in the missing letters phonics type page. Keep in mind how students at this age are typing and how they're navigating with a computer. And so it might be taking them a lot longer than you think to complete the assignments that you feel should be done in just a matter of, 10 minutes or less. And then the last one is that we're not building much time in our virtual classrooms to really get to know one another and their classmates. So make sure you build in I do just a quick 5-minute good morning greetings, and I ask them to share something good about their day, whether it was yesterday or that day I'm asking them. And that's helped a lot build that classroom community. All these students have shared, these little pieces of their lives, and in 5 minutes, guys, I can get through like 3 or 4 kids sharing, and I do that every single day, and I get most of my class by the end of the week has shared, or some kids have shared more than once. And I think that really helps get them knowing their classmates. And it's just 5 minutes, right? While you're waiting for other kids to log on, like yesterday was a Tuesday. So I had students logging in, and I had maybe 3 kids. And I was like, it's time to start. I'm starting. And I asked for good things. And so there was only 3 kids there at the time, but I had 1 kid that wanted to share. So we started our sharing. And then once that 5 minutes is up, I'm saying, I'm so sorry if you wanted to share. Maybe we'll have time when we finish our lessons, or hold it till the next day and share the next day. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you found it worthwhile to get some insight behind what it's like as a student going through distance learning, what a parent might be seeing from their end. And also, one last point I didn't point out earlier is that a lot of parents, I'm sure you've known this by now, are not very tech savvy. So the easier you can make things for parents to follow along as well, the better. I actually we use Google Classroom, so I actually have a spot in my Google Classroom for the students that says How-To Library, and in there I've actually done videos. So I've screen recorded myself walking through the steps like I'm a student. Here's how you go into Google Classroom and find your assignments. Here's how you make sure things are turned in and you check your to-do list. So I have made a how-to library, and I refer parents to that quite often. If they're stuck, like we use Epic every once in a while, but not super often, and I still have parents here in February that we've been using Epic since August will be like, I don't understand. How does he get in? And I said, well, in the classroom library, there is a video that says how to, and it says how to join Epic. So they can go and watch that video, and the parents can log on with the kid and watch that video of joining Epic. So that is just a good little tool to have for those parents that are need a little visual on how to do something. And I find it pretty easy to screen record and do that. It just takes me, maybe 5 minutes to record a video, especially if it's a short one, like checking the to-do list on Google Classroom. That's a pretty short video that is easy to record. So, all right, that's all I have for you today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you again next time. If you've loved this show, then join me in sharing the teaching,
hitting that subscribe button,
and leaving us a review on
iTunes,
so we can be found by more teachers like you who are ready to start sharing the workload. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Find new episodes each week on sharedteaching.com. Thanks for listening to the Shared Teaching Podcast. Easily. And then, so I'm sorry. I feel like this is a very rambly episode.